Hey guys, welcome back to my second and final Umbrella Academy video when it comes to Season 1, for the time being at least. Now on this video, I'm going to be discussing predictions for Season 2 based on the comic book arcs. I'm going to be mentioning some stuff that I did mention on my review video, but just in more of a summarized manner. The objective will be basically to trace where we're at the moment and where we're going to be going on Season 2, from my own perspective of course. Whatever predictions I'm going to be basing over here have got to start from that very final scene of the first season.
It's working! Hold on! This could get messy!
So, number one, I believe that as Season 2 starts, we're going to be picking up right where we left off, or shortly after, and that while they might be traveling to the future, as at the end of Season 1 or at the beginning of Season 2, traveling to the past is going to be inevitable. Now, the ending of Season 1 had us see Vanya still with her abilities intact, because all that Allison did was shoot a bullet next to her ear. In the comics, and as opposed to that, number 5 actually shoots her in the head, pretty much taking away most of her motor functions and pretty much taking away as well her ability to use her violin and has her ability to destroy as well. So while the issue of Vanya is kind of resolved as of the end of the first arc, Apocalypse Suite, it's not really resolved on the series, and that's one thing, and as stated at the end of the season, that's gonna have to be resolved over the course of the second season. Now that does bring us to number 2, Vanya is going to wake up and Vanya is going to be able to use her abilities again, and when she does that she's going to be destructive at first. But nonetheless, number 3, I'm expecting that they're going to find a resolution to Vanya's issue. They're going to find a treatment to Vanya that's going to basically stop her once and for all, help her get treated, help her use her abilities or control her abilities and use them for good. Number 4, the first season might have ended with Pogo dead at the hands of Vanya nonetheless, but we are sure we're going to be seeing Pogo again, because for one thing we've got Klaus, who has already brought us a lot of characters on the first season that were not really alive, including Ben, and will probably as easily give us Pogo on the second season. But there's also the fact, and as I just explained, that they're going to be traveling to the past, and hence why I'm expecting they're going to be meeting a younger version of Pogo. Now this prediction is pretty much based on the second comic book arc when it comes to the Umbrella Academy, the one titled Dallas. But number 5 though, Allison is going to get her powers back. She's going to get her voice back. Now Allison in the comics is also known as Rumor. I'm not sure they actually used a code name within the realm of the series, but nonetheless she's known as Rumor. Her ability is basically all about altering reality by lying. Now if the second season goes by the way I expect it to go by, her ability is going to be much needed, and not by the Umbrella Academy or the members of the Umbrella Academy, but rather by the agency. But alright, a couple of things that I might have missed explaining on my first video that you probably noticed from the series is that in this reality, JFK never actually got killed. That was basically the correction to the timeline, the mission that number 5 went on, the final mission that he made his escape from and made it back to his siblings in the Umbrella Academy. He was supposed to kill JFK, but he never did. Now in the comics, and because that's the difference between that timeline and our reality timeline, JFK and at some point did end up handing Reginald Hargreeves a nuclear weapon, and while on the pages of the comics the apocalypse that would be caused by Vanya on the first arc, Apocalypse Suite, was averted, the second arc did see an apocalypse only because of that nuclear weapon. It did go off. Now before the weapon went off, Allison and number 5 were abducted by the agency and taken back to 1963, and even closer to it going off, Luther, Diego, and Klaus managed to make their escape through time. I did explain that on my review video, so I'm not going to go into the details again. But before I do connect the dots on that one, that brings us to prediction number 6, the fall of the handler who seemed to be a fill-in for Carmichael from the comic books at the end of Season 1 at the hands of Hazel, and while it might be considered the end of the agency or that we're never going to see the agency again based on the comic book series, isn't really what I predict is going to be the case. In fact, I do think that the handler on the series is not really the highest up within the organization. I do expect that Carmichael is going to make an appearance, or if too expensive to do the CGI to create a robot with a goldfish as a brain, they're going to go with another creation for the series to fill in for the character. And the reason I say that is because that's what Allison needs in order to get her powers back. So, to build further on the Dallas story that I was just talking about, both number 5 and Allison are taken back to the agency under threats to kill one of their mothers. Not going to go into detail now, but nonetheless, they're taken back to the agency and out of the timeline. The objective over here is to use number 5 to stop his older version before he kills all the temps and ruins the mission for all of them. They want JFK killed. But however, that's not all there is to their plan. They've got a contingency plan, and that contingency plan includes using the powers of Allison by putting her under the knife, operating on her and giving her vocal cords back, and also threatening the life of Luther, the very core existence of Luther from the very start. And that comes with an awesome reveal, by the way, that I don't really want to spoil over here, because whether or not they go with that arc, I believe they're going to go with that reveal anyway. But number 7, I do expect we're going to be seeing a lot more of Ben and using his abilities over the course of the second season. Of course, the horror over here is going to use his abilities through Klaus like he did on the first season, at the very end of the first season, which by the way I might have missed discussing on my review video, but was such an amazing moment and right out of the comic book pages. Number 8, and based on the comic book arc that I just discussed, Allison is going to finish the 1963 JFK mission. Now in the comics there's actually a bonus to completing this mission. JFK never lives, so he never gives Hargreeves the suitcase with the nuclear weapon. Accordingly, and as a result, the weapon that's been given to Hargreeves for safekeeping is never actually used to wreck humanity. Now that ends up being a resolution to the dilemma of the second arc in the comics, even though our 5 heroes involved in this arc did not really know in advance that this would resolve that. Number 9, and this one is exactly as per the comics. I do expect number 5 to end up taking out Carmichael, or whatever character that the series does introduce on Season 2 to fill in for Carmichael. But on another note, they could always bring back the Handler. I mean, the Handler died at the end of Season 1, but a version of the Handler from a different point in her career, a different point in her timeline, could always make a comeback, because her entire deal over here is all about time travel, so it's not really a big deal. Number 10, I'm not really sure how they could fit Hazel and Cha-Cha in all of this, but I'm pretty sure they'll be able to do that. They could end up being once again the henchmen that are sent through time in order to bring number 5 and Allison in over the course of Season 2. Once again, they might have died at the end of Season 1 because of the cataclysmic event that kind of wrecked the planet, but nonetheless, different point in their lives, different point in their timeline, and time travel. Number 11, as opposed to the comics, they cannot really resolve the issue at hand, the issue as of the end of Season 1, by completing the 1963 mission, but instead they're going to have to find a resolution. Now I think that what's going to be happening over here is they're going to have to finish that mission. That's going to be like the first half of the season, and then they're going to have to find their way to resolving the issue of Vanya, and after fixing her or finding a fix for her, they're going to have to travel to a point in time before she actually wrecked the planet and fix her over there. Like basically fix her in her past life in order to avoid the cataclysmic event to start with. Because think about it, fixing this post-apocalyptic version of Vanya does not do them any good. It's really fixing her after the fact rather than before the fact, and all they need over here is to actually fix her before the fact, before the event. Maybe the resolution to her problem is to go by the comic book resolution. So she gets back on her feet, she goes crazy once again, they try to control her, they do fail, they try to do everything they can and they do fail, and this time instead of a gun fired next to her ear in order to stop her, a bullet is fired into her head by number 5, just like the case was in the comics. That would probably do the same as in the comics, put her in a state where she doesn't have any memory of a lot of things, including who's who and including her powers as well. That would also have her lose all motor function, so she would basically be unable to operate her violin. But that also brings us to number 12, and this one depends entirely on when they fix Vanya in present-day events, but nonetheless, if they do fix her before her attack on the Academy, Pogo might end up still being alive on the series. Now personally, I do expect that they've invested a lot in creating Pogo for the series, so they are probably going to end up finding a way to bring Pogo back to life in present-day events. That way he's still there with the series for a third and hopefully a fourth and a fifth season if the series keeps going at this amazing pace. But number 13 though, and this is just a minor possibility over here, but the introduction of Inspector Lupo from the comics on the series. Now on the first season we had these two inspectors, Chuck and Eudora. They were basically villains for Lupo from the comics, but Lupo in the comics, just like these two, does have a strong working relationship with Diego. One interesting thing about Inspector Lupo is that he has this Jim Gordon thing going on for him. He's old enough to be the Jim Gordon we know on the pages of the Batman comics. He's got the glasses, the mustache, and the beige raincoat, all of which does remind us of Jim Gordon, once again on the pages of the Batman comics. But finally though, number 14, the team is gonna be separated, just like the case was on the pages of the Dallas arc. Klaus as well is expected to have that baby that he does have on the pages of the Dallas arc in the 1960s, because they do spend a lot of time in the 1960s on the pages of the comics. I'm talking about Luther, Diego, and Klaus over here. But even though this is a prediction video for the second season of the series, that doesn't mean that you have got to wait until Season 2 to let me know in the comments what you thought of Season 1 and what your predictions are for Season 2. You don't have to wait either to let me know if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and enabling notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. But until the next time you tune in for another one of my videos, The Umbrella Academy or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this predictions video, and have a great day.